Open season, a game we got just by hearing that there was set collection and drafting and cascading bonuses. So, did we make the right choice? Stick around for a brief how to play, and then I'll tell you on the other side of that. Alright, so here we are set up for a basic play of open season. You are going to give each person a player board. You're going to put it on the side that shows the little horn. You're going to create a supply of trophy tokens in the cartouches, wild tokens, and negative ones. But at most, the player can ever get 6 trophies, 1 wild, a cartouche, or this. So we kind of just give them all to a person, and they can grab them if they accomplish them. You're going to shuffle up all the cards, create an in of 4 cards. Again, usually in the middle of the table. I'm just doing this thusly to show you. You can also put them next to each other. Then, if you are choosing to play with the advanced tiles, you are going to each person grab their 7 advanced tiles, secretly choose which ones and which faces they want to do, and put them at the top of the board, like so. But again, that is an advanced rule set. On your turn, you're going to perform the following 6 steps. First thing you're going to do is you're going to complete the inn. You are going to make sure there are 4 characters in the inn. After that, you are going to move any stock you have into your accolades, which is a face-down pile. Your accolades, you can adjust them however you want, move them around, restore them, but they stay face down. After that, you're going to choose 2 cards from the inn. So we are going to, let's say I'm going to choose this card and this card. You then take those into your hand. Then you're going to place one of them on your wall, possibly triggering some form of ability or effect. Let's take a closer look at the board at this time. So you're going to see this green border right here with the not equal. Each one of these needs to be a different character. So if they were already there, I cannot place this one face up here. If I am forced to, because if I am able to place it somewhere else, I must. But if I have no option to place one here, you'll place it face down, and that will be negative points at the end of the game. So let's go over the spaces on the board. So that is, those all have to be different. These, if they are all the same, you'll receive 5 points. This one, if you complete all 3 of these between rounds 3 and 6, you will get 4 trophy tokens and this negative point token. This spot here, if you fill this between rounds 1 and 4, you get this green cartouche that will replace that scoring at the end of the game. In this spot, if you put it between rounds 1 and 2, you get 2 trophy tokens. 3 and 4 is a wild. 5 and 6 is only 1 trophy token. I'll go over these other symbols when I explain endgame scoring, but we'll now look at these symbols on the top row. So what's going to happen is, let's use these 2 as an example, and say I put one of them there, and then step 5 is you place a card in your stock. Now you can trigger 1 or more actions if possible. If the card you put in your stock matches one of the cards in the upper row, you will do the denoted action on that spot. You can only ever trigger each action once per round, no matter what else happens. If you trigger this, you are going to take the top card of a player's stock. If their stock is empty, you will take one randomly from their accolades. That player will then grab 1 character from the inn or from the top of the deck blindly and put that into their stock without triggering an action. If the stolen card matches a card up here, I will then trigger said action as long as it has not been triggered again. So if I stole another one of these and put this down, I would not be able to trigger this ability again. In this spot, you are able to take a trophy token that's on the top row and move it down to your bottom row. That'll make sense when I explain trophy tokens. This next one is you are going to draw 2 from the top of the deck, look at them, and add one of them to your stock, putting the other ones face up, or back on the top, face down. This final spot lets you take a card from the inn and put it below your board as your supply, and next round that'll be in your hand, so you're only going to take 1 card from the inn. So that is those 4 spots that can get triggered from there. After doing the triggering from your stock, if you have a trophy token, you can place it on a card in the top row to trigger one of the actions you have not taken yet this turn. So if I have already done the draw to take one, which I already have, I cannot put this on here and take that action again. Again, these can only happen once per round. So you are going to be playing back and forth until everyone has their boards filled up. You are only going to be placing one card per round, so the game will play over 11 rounds, and then you'll get into end game scoring. Your end game scoring, you're going to take all the cards in your accolades, lay them out by creature type. I like to create columns of creatures and rows of the attributes because you'll be scoring those as well. Going down our score sheet, any of your creatures in your accolades that match either creature that is here is going to be -2 points or -3 points per card respectively. Any cards that match this spot or this spot is going to be 1 point or 2 point respectively. And then you're going to look at this spot, and if you have the most of this specific one in your accolades than everyone else, you get 10. You have to have specifically most, you can't be tied. You'll get -5 points for every face down card. You're going to get 2 points per creature in your accolade that shares the attribute with whatever card is in this spot. You are then going to score points for a set of one of each different attribute. There is 5 of them. If you get this cartouche, it's worth 7 points per set. Otherwise, it's worth 4 points per set. If all 3 of these are the same, you get 5 points. If you've unlocked this tile, you're going to get -1 point per card that has an attribute of your least amount of attribute. Your trophy tokens, if they're placed here, are going to be a point. If they're placed here, they're going to be worth 2 points. If you place them here, they're going to be an additional one of that type of creature. So if I have these 2 of my accolades and I have this one here, I have 3 of this monkey man looking guy. You're going to total all that up, subtract your other points, and most points wins. This last row here is if you're playing with the advanced tiles. Now let me quickly go over the back side, the advanced side of the board. It is slightly different. First off, you're only doing 9 spots. Next is, instead of using the trophy tokens on the bottom rows or to trigger abilities, if you place them here between rounds 6 and 9, you get one. Then you choose one of these to use as an end game scoring. This is if you have 18 or more cards in your accolades, you'll get 7 points. If you have a full set of all attributes in one type of creature, so if I have him with all 5 attributes, that would be 7 points. This next one is if I have 5 cards on my wall that share the same attribute, that is 7 points, and then 1 point per attribute of my choice. All these still stay the same, 1 point and 2 point. However, your negative points are now just -2 and -2. You get your wild token down here. There is no upgrading of the cartouche, and there is no negative token on this side. The other change is this ability. You now instead will be able to take one choice from the inn and immediately place it atop your stock, triggering an action. So instead of reserving it for a future turn, it goes into your stock. So that is the shield side of the board. Really quick on these advanced tiles, how you trigger them is this is an additional 7th step in your turn, is if all 3 spots in that column all share the same attribute, you unlock the ability of that tile. Then they have 18 different or 14 different abilities because there's 7 different tiles. In that regards, the wild token, which I haven't covered yet, can be used during the game. Outside of that, what they normally are used for is at the end of the game, when you go to this spot, you can put it on this card to change its attribute for end game scoring, or you can place it on a card in your accolade to give it a different attribute for this, or to possibly help score you down at the bottom. Alright, so there you go. That is how you play open season. So let's get into seeing how it go. So first off, we're going to look at inside the box. I did do a unboxing with that previous how to play attached to it. That'll be linked up above. But my thoughts on the components and everything inside of the box. So the cards themselves, there are a lot of them, 180. Really loved the illustrations. I love that the fact of what the attributes were easily distinguishable on the card. Like if it was war paint, they were all painted up. Each one had a crown, and they actually varied too from illustration to illustration. So like the one dwarf's crown may look a little different than the other dwarf's crown. So kind of just not using the same repetitive artwork throughout, it kind of adds a little bit of cool variety and flair to the game and the cards themselves. The insert itself inside works. It took me a second to realize that like angled part was you put the cards in and lay them, that way you can pull them out. I was trying to stack them in and they were kind of sliding all over the place. So it did take me longer to figure out than I probably should have, and I feel a little silly that it took me that long. But yeah, so it does fit nice just there. Just push them over and then they're easy to pull out because you just push up and pull them out. So that is kind of like a cool little tweak of an insert that's just really well made. The rulebook itself does a good job of teaching things, showing examples. I felt it didn't need to be as big as it was, though. There was kind of a lot of blank space and empty space. They possibly could have shrunk stuff and kind of fit it in a little bit better so it wasn't as big. But I mean, it functions well. It shows you what you need to show. It walks you through everything. I will say, if you don't have the board in front of you, reading how stuff scores does sound a little weird in the rulebook. It does help to have that visual aid. And then all the tokens themselves felt thick, have good quality to them, are distinguishable. You can tell what they're doing. I like that they made the wild token because it pertains to the attribute in the little attribute shape, so it kind of helps distinguish it from the other stuff. So now on to the two-player experience. So first off, this game does not have any special two-player rules. Nothing fancy happens because you're in two players, so we're going to play exactly the same rules-wise as the 3 and 4 player games. The big difference for us, we feel, in a two-player game is that market does get somewhat stale, especially because there's the one action that has a person reserve a card. So then at that point you're filling 3, but then the next turn when they only take 1, then you're only getting a change of 1. And with 180 cards between the two of us, in most games we went around about 50 of them, because each person's going to get 22 cards for sure, because there's 11 spots on the board, and you take 2, so that's 22, that's 44. Then usually about an extra 6 to 8 by the other various abilities, unless we really focus on them. I think the most we ever got up to was like 65 cards in one game. But even in regards to that, at 60, we'll just say 60, that is only a third of the deck we're getting through. And with the variety of 5 attributes amongst 6 classes, trying to lay out your board, especially when certain things want all different ones, or it's going to be negative points, or that one where there's 3 of the same to get the 5 points. Trying to be able to make sure you get that one to be able to put there can be a bit harder in a two-player game where you're not getting that deck churning out like it normally would. So that is one thing that we did find, that market kind of got stale, and that kind of really left you a lot more up to the luck of the draw for those certain scoring criteria. But overall, for the two-player experience for us, we found it enjoyable. It moves quick because it's take 2 cards, put one in your stock, possibly trigger an action or 2, go on to the next one. So there wasn't any downtime really, because there was just the 2 of us, so it is that back and forth. And that leads us into gameplay. So initially for gameplay, if you look at someone and go, all right, so your turn is played over 6 steps, their eyes are going to be like, whoa, 6 steps, all right, I got to really focus and pay attention. But the 6 steps are quick and simple. Like your first one is fill the end, step 1. Step 2, move your stock to your accolades. Done. 3, take 2 cards. 4, put 1 on your wall. 5, put 1 in your stock. 6, trigger actions. So even though it is 6 steps, each step is super quick, super simple to explain. It's like literally like, all right, ready for your first step? Yeah. All right, you're going to make sure that has 5 cards. And that's it, first step. So the steps themselves, as I said, are really simple. The board itself does have quite a bit of iconography in it to denote the different actions and how different things score and what you get in certain rounds. So that can seem a bit overwhelming when you first look at it. But once you understand kind of what everything means, it does help it become quick, second nature. You can bam, bam, bam through things. Like looking and realizing that the symbol for the attributes is, if you look on the card, it's the same little circle with the little points coming out of it. So knowing that the little kind of shieldish symbol represents your trophies, because that kind of is what's behind them. So just knowing that really helps dictate how you're going to do things. The 4 actions along the top, there is the one where you take the person's stock and they draw one. That iconography does look a little weird for what it does, so it doesn't necessarily like trigger right in your mind what it is. The other ones though, everything else flows well, looks nice. You can tell, you can look. The B side, the shield side, the more advanced side, however you want to say, their end of game scoring, those do need a little bit of explanation, kind of the way they show them. Does take like a level of thought or two before you can really initially decipher what they are, but once you figure it out again, it's pretty easy to know. And in relation to that iconography, that leads me into that the scoring can be a bit hard to wrap your head around at first, because you're not scoring your board is setting the scoring conditions for what's in your accolades. So really trying to figure out, all right, I can put this person here, but now I'm going to get -2 points for them. So I need to make sure I want to put them maybe up here somewhere where I'm not going to want to trigger them much, so I don't have to grab as many. So just trying to remember, like, these certain spots are negative for what they are. These are, you're looking for the most of this one. This one is, you're going to be caring about the attributes. Then you also got to care about the attributes for the amount of sets you have to score those 4 or 7 points per set. So just the amount of things you have to pay attention to, of where you're putting certain cards and how you're going to use certain cards to trigger things, that is a lot of where that gameplay and strategic depth does lie. Because obviously the card that has -3 points, you're not going to want to put on the top row in a place where you really want to trigger a lot, because then you're not going to want to really grab those from the middle to put in your stock, to put in your accolades and get the -3 points all the time. So you do want to try and look for that synergy and that combo of, I can get something good here, and then I can also score better down here. So that is really where that gameplay strategy lies. So overall, we did find the game fun. Really cool puzzle to kind of manipulate. Like I said, which cards are you going to put where? When are you going to optimally put on the top row? Because if you're filling up that top row right away, you're going to be missing out on 4 trophy tokens. But those 4 trophy tokens come at a cost, because you're going to be negative points for the lowest attribute. But just maybe make sure all your attributes are even, or just try and maybe only get one of something. But if you get one of something, then you're not getting those extra points for those sets. So really trying to manage, like, what is going to be the best scoring option, that kind of puzzle right there. Our biggest gripe with it is what I've already touched on, the whole market, and there not being a refresh option, especially in a 2-player one where you aren't churning through. Like, I know it's at 2, 2, 2, but if you add a third person, that's an additional 22 cards. And if you factor in with all the bonus draws, each person goes through, say, 26, 27 cards. At 3 people, now you're at 81. Now you're going through half the deck as opposed to only a third. So that extra half can really expound upon where you can start getting more of those cards, and your person who lets you take from the stock, well, now you have an extra stock, and you're not just limited to what the one person across from you took. As I said, we did play on the shield side. We found that one to be a bit, I don't know if boring is the right word, but a bit more straightforward, because on the regular board, when you get those trophy tokens, you have a couple options. You can put them on the bottom to score points there, or you can put them on the top to trigger more abilities and try and get them siphoned down to your bottom. On the shield side, all you do with them is when you get them, you put them on for an endgame ability or an endgame scoring option, so you don't have that whole ability to start triggering more of your top row stuff. Plus, your entire top row is where you get those trophy tokens between turns 6 through 9. So you do have to make that decision of, when am I going to fill those? Because I haven't run the math, but I'm pretty sure you can get all 4 scored, because one of them is you have 18 or more cards. Well, you only have 9 turns, so that means you need to average 2 cards per turn. Well, there's the 2 spots that give you cards, so if you get there by turn 6, that's only turns 6, 7, 8, 9. It's only 4 turns that you're able to get double, so you really have to get like triple or quadruple on those turns, which is very hard to do. So you have to kind of figure out which goals am I going to want to go to. But it just seemed very more straightforward of literally just taking the 2 cards, pointing them out, done. Taking the 2 cards, pointing them out, done. It was much more low-key and not as much chaining of the stuff that we like. Then there are the advanced tiles. I will say right out of the bat, we have not played with those because that's going to add a level of thinking that I think is really going to slow Bri down and even me to a degree, because at that point now you're not just looking at the specific race or class that you're going for, you're also looking at their attributes because you want to get those attributes in the same row. So that is really going to limit what you're trying to grab as well, and especially if we're already having trouble getting the specific things we want, trying to line them up is going to be a problem for us. But they do add that whole other level of puzzling. So if you do find this is too easy and you want to add that extra level of difficulty, and those advanced tiles give you more scoring options or give you special abilities or allow you to grab more cards or have they do a good job of not necessarily repeating stuff. So it adds that whole extra level of replayability to the game. Also, if you're playing with those, that probably will draw your focus away from the one spot that gives you your trophy tokens for the first couple of turns to wanting to get that wild token. Because once you have that wild token, if you can get 2 of an attribute in a row, you can place that during the game and switch it so now you can succeed and get that advanced tile token. So overall, we are going to say it go good. So we are giving this a 7 out of 10. It is one that we will be going back to from time to time. It's not one that I'm going to be wanting to pull out every day, but it is definitely one that we are going to keep in our rotation. So open season, it go good. Thank you for joining me on this review. If you could go ahead and like, subscribe, comment, share, and ring the bell for this video and channel, I would be appreciated. And until then, happy hunting.